Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Zariel's Hellblade. Hello and welcome back to a brand new run. You saw the clip, you know what we're doing today. This build is insane. It is a build that is supposed to be a Paladin of Zariel, and of course, since Zariel is so powerful, her Paladin can't be weak as well. However, this build, despite the name and all, is not using any mods. All you're gonna see today in this video is entirely mod free. The only mods I use are for cosmetic purposes only, so do note that. You can just go into your own game and copy exactly what I'm doing and you will see the same results. In this video I'm gonna explain how the build works. I'm not gonna go too much in depth on the build guide because that's gonna be a separate video at the very end of the series, but I'm gonna explain how all the things work so you don't get confused. Also, I'm gonna show all the biggest hits in Act 1 and 2 and in general my favorite fights, but if I don't show any fights you like very much, you can just comment down below what you want to see so I can include it in future builds. Also, if you have any questions related to the build or just in general, I will answer all of them, so comment those as well. Like and subscribe if you like the content, and enjoy the video. Alright, I'm gonna use Mithara here to explain the core feature of this build, which is what turns this build from very good to broken. And that is Arsonist Oil. Arsonist Oil on its own is just a coating on a weapon that allows you to apply it to targets that are resistant to fire to make them not resistant to fire anymore. However, what the coating actually does, it turns the resistance score to -1. Now if the target is resistant, they already have a +1, so they cancel each other out and they end up being neither resistant nor vulnerable to the element. However, if the target is resistant and the Arsonist Oil is applied, and then the resistance wears off, the -1 from the Arsonist Oil is still in effect, so they become vulnerable. This means that if you make a target resistant to fire damage, then apply the Arsonist Oil, because you can only apply Arsonist Oil to targets that are resistant, and then the resistance somehow ends, the target will be vulnerable for 1 turn. This is essentially a 2x on our damage and how we deal such a high amount of damage. Now how do we make a target temporarily resistant? The answer is obvious, we use water bottles. Water bottles apply the wet effect for 3 turns, so we wait out the first 2 turns and then attack the target with a weapon that is coated in Arsonist Oil once it's only 1 turn wet left. Arsonist Oil lasts 2 turns, so the first turn they cancel each other out, then the wet turn goes away and we are left with 1 turn of Arsonist Oil that just gives us that -1 that results in vulnerability. I hope that made sense, because I'm gonna use this exact method for the entire video to just double my damage. It's insanely OP, nobody really knows about it. I think it's on the wiki as well, but just nobody cares, I guess. And it's fantastic. One downside is that you really just have to have that 1 turn for burst damage, but there really isn't anyone who takes more than 1 turn to kill if you deal that amount of damage. Some of you may have already noticed that I'm using the Flame Blade as my main weapon, which is essentially just a spell that is supposed to last 10 turns, but using a minor exploit we get it permanently, and a slightly different version of it. This exploit has been in the game for now 8 patches, so at this point it's a feature in my opinion. That's why I use it so deliberately. Also, this Flame Blade is just too good to not use. It deals pure fire damage, which is perfect if we have a way to make targets vulnerable to it. And it also looks perfect for our Paladin of Zariel look, so there's no reason not to use it really. But yeah, that's essentially how the build works at its core. If that was too much input in a short period of time, I'm sorry, I tried to keep it as understandable as possible, but I think it was still a bit much. All you really need to know is that I'm using Flame Blade as my weapon, and that Arsonist Oil allows us to make targets vulnerable for 1 turn. That is how we deal so much damage, and obviously there are going to be plenty of items we get along the way that enhance our damage even more than this, but those will be covered more in detail when I do the actual build guide. I just wanted to make clear how we're going to play this build, so there's no confusion in the later parts.
There's an illithid parasite in that corpse. You should take a look.
We also killed Droraxlin and the Duergar together with Truso and Nier. Both are very nice for extra XP, and killing Droraxlin makes sure we can enter the Mountainpass without issue and not causing the tieflings to die. Entering the Mountainpass, first thing we do is go down to the monastery and kill all of the kobolds. This is enough XP to bring us to level 6, and this is also our first sorcerer level. The sorcerer levels are very important for spell slots and also a few other features later into the game. But for now it's important to know that we do this to get spell slots. Our first 5 levels were obviously into Paladin for extra attack, and as some of you may know, we get our first 5 levels just from my early game route without any combat. If you're curious to see that, there's another video up on my channel where I go through the entire route and for you to copy as well. I'm usually not a big fan of these dragon scale cosmetics, but for this character I think they look pretty cool. Also, yes, again, my character is modded, but it's only cosmetic. I do not want any comments saying, oh mod, it's cosmetic, please stay calm. All the build is entirely vanilla. We talk our way into the Gith Creche and buy 2 items from the Gith trader. One, the Glass of Dexterity, which give us a nice combat bonus for the time being, and the Vital Conduit boots for 8 temporary hit points each time we cast a concentration based spell. As per usual, before trying to fight the higher level Gith bosses, I go to Act 2 to collect some items and build upgrades. But for some reason, this time around there was this old guy chilling here. I've never seen him before, he seemed like some low level wizard. He was pretty weak as well. But he did give a lot of XP though. I don't know why he was here. I think he wanted to talk, but he didn't really try very hard to do that.
Alright then. Softer than a whisper. A knife in the dark. Hope your soul is in good hands. Pig.
Who there? May I inquire if perchance you had
Bodies for the harvest.
Your vile.
Now, jokes aside, Elminster kinda wrecked me. Because, for one, he should have turned lethargic, but he skipped that with the dialogue, and usually enemies aren't supposed to be able to start dialogue while stunned or lethargic, but his dialogue starts even when you are invisible. I know that for a fact, so I guess it's just a cheat dialogue. On top of that, he obviously slowed me, as you can see, so I turned lethargic because I was hasted, and he just turns that around. Luckily, I drank a potion of universal resistance, making him unable to one-shot me here, but this was closer than I would have hoped it to be. But now that the old guy is dead, we can finally actually go to Act 2 to get the build upgrades. We buy the Shadeclinger armor and +1 armor class cloak from Tully as per usual. Then we go to Damon and give him the metal so he can make us the Flawed Hader's gloves. These gloves give us 1d4 extra fire damage, which obviously is very nice on all our weapon attacks. And lastly, we also blow up the Strange Ox off screen, giving us the Head of Fire Acuity, which is a fantastic head if you want to use this build but lean more into the caster side when you have more sorcerer levels, but for now it's not that useful to us. Also, since I get asked this question a lot in the comments, I thought I would show the process of changing my armor appearance for all of you to see. You just use this one item to copy whatever appearance you want onto your armor piece, and then I use another color mod that allows me to have access to way more colors than the vanilla game to change the color as well. Pretty simple stuff, just thought I would show it here so you all see how it's done. We talk to Karniss and then free the pixie to get the blessing, which allows us to continue our trading journey to Moonrise. Here we buy the Sentinel Shield from Lantarv, and of course also the Dragthroat Glaive from Moonglow. This glaive, I think all of you know it by now. I use it on every run where I'm using any martial class, just because it's a free +1 weapon enchantment and a 1d4 of a chosen element. For us it's of course going to be fire, and by now we're really starting to stack a lot of damage on our weapon. And to stack that damage even more, we also kill the Shadow Mastiff Alpha for the Shadow Cloaked Ring for even more damage. And this concludes our Act 2 journey. We will return later, but for now let's do the Gith. We kill this batch of Gith in the dormitory first, just because they give a ring that infuses your weapon with a 1d4 of an element if you cast an elemental spell. So if we cast any fire, cantrip or spell, our weapon will be infused for one hit for another 1d4 damage. And luckily Searing Smite counts as a spell for this purpose, so once we cast Searing Smite, our second attack is going to be infused with more fire damage.
Try me.
These Gith plus a few on the hallway give us level 7, which gives us access to a level 4 Flameblade, and level 4 Flameblade is the upcasted version, meaning it deals another 1d6 damage, in addition to getting a cool visual overhaul. And I can't wait to see what the level 6 one is going to look like, because before this run I didn't actually know that aside from the extra damage, the upcasted Flameblades also get this cool visual change. Alright. Now it is time for the actual hard fights in this act, not just some overambitious grandpa. The Ketheric Rooftop is always dangerous because she can cast fear, but this one is honestly a crazy fight. Just watch.
You sort of.
Very well.
those of you with keener eyes might have caught that I just had disadvantage there. And I stupidly spent my reaction so I couldn't use Luck of the Far Realms. So yes, that was a critical hit with disadvantage, a 1 in 400 chance. Now before fighting the Inquisitor, I really wanted to get the number as high as possible, so I actually started the fight early, killed one of his subordinates, and then dipped to change out of my gear, cause this specific Gith drops a headband that gives us Arcane Acuity, allowing us to add our spellcasting modifier to our melee damage, and the way Shadow Cloaked Ring works, this applies twice. I've gone over this a lot of times, but just know this is a huge damage bonus. And it's going to be very useful when we get that huge hit on the Inquisitor. Now the Inquisitor is our first target that is hostile when we apply the wet effect. All the other targets, it's pretty easy to just make them wet before combat, because they don't even like initiate dialogue or anything. But for this one we have to be careful, because as soon as we throw the bottle or come into range, combat will start. To combat this I try to use Greater Invisibility. That doesn't work, so I end up having to invis out while he's wet so I can initiate combat with the Arsonist Oil shot. But the end result is fantastic. I am very happy with this fight, so I hope you enjoyed this one.
Quiet. Can't slow down.
We bring Scratch over here so we can hasten ourselves. It is important that we clear at least the wizard, even though they're still surprised. I want them off the battlefield. Getting Psychic Rendered here and then Mind Stealing could be devastating, so I want this to be as flawless as possible. saving the Mind Steer Tempest here is huge, so we don't get vulnerable to psychic damage, which would be devastating with all the swords around. And now, with haste, we have 3 attempts at smiting the Inquisitor, and it turns out we do need all 3, so I'm very glad I brought Scratch into this. After this absolute devastation of a hit, we also make sure to kill the other 2 Gith, and it turns out I did so much damage that even Blackith is impressed. Though, if I'm being entirely honest, I am certain that if this build went up against Blackith in actual combat, this build would easily win. Blackith is not that strong, so I guess if she could wish me to death still, but if I beat her on initiative, she would die in 1 turn easily. We immediately jump back into Act 2 after having done all of this, and the first thing we do is the last light defense, and I call it a defense here because it should have been a defense, but even though I buffed Thisobald with Shield of Thralls, 8, and I killed Marcus and the Winged Horror in my first turn, she still somehow managed to die. I do not know why Larian made this quest. It's horrible, genuinely horrible. Out of my control whether she lives or dies, and I really wanted the Damon Act 3 gear, so now I'm just kind of, yeah. It's not a huge issue, but it's just insanely annoying, and I do not know why Larian made this quest like this. It's such a bad decision. At least one upside of this is that killing all of the dead Harpers and the Shadow Cursed Vines does bring us to level 8, unlocking not only level 3 spell slots, but also a Meta Magic Quicken spell, which, funnily enough, does work on smites, but not in the way you would think. It doesn't just cost 1 bonus action. Smite by default costs like all of the named smites, not the Vine Smite. All of the named smite cost 1 bonus action and an action at the same time, but what Quicken Spell does, it makes them cost 2 bonus actions. This will become important later into Act 3, so keep this in mind. Now it turns out, to my huge surprise, the tower I've been to earlier buying all that stuff is actually inhabited by an evil cult. I don't know how I missed that, but apparently they're all evil in there. And I personally don't have anything against evil cults, but Zarya doesn't really like that. She doesn't like it if anyone worships other people. So she kinda told me that I have to murder every single one in this tower immediately. So, I mean, I can't really say no, can I?
We did as we was told, General. Follow
The fact
A blood.
you failed to retrieve the artifact.
You're standing in the lion's den, facing a legendary general, his guards, and who knows what eldritch powers. Just in case you needed a reminder.
You blasphemous little rat!
How amusing.
And even though
Take care of
Ketheric
them,
just
Jarrell.
fled to his own little space up in the tower, you might be asking yourself, whoa, isn't this a bit, stupid? And yeah, I totally agree. I don't know either why they thought that they'd stand a chance against the Paladin of Zariel. I think their brain god just gave them some illusion of power that it just isn't true at all. A quick question on the side though, for all of those of you who know a bit more about D&D lore than I do. Who would actually be stronger, the Absolute or Zariel? Because I'm presenting this like Zariel is way stronger, but I'm actually not sure, because the Absolute in the end is kinda strong. Anyway, I got a bit sidetracked there. This and a bunch of XP from the open world of Act 2 brings us to level 9, and this unlocks a very important feat. Elemental Adept allows us to bypass resistance with both our melee attacks and our spells, if we're dealing fire damage, which is really the only damage we're dealing. And not only does it do that, but it also allows us to never roll a 1 on any damage dice, and since we have a bunch of small damage dice, this is a huge upgrade. Because our damage is basically just 1d6 plus 1d6 plus 1d6 plus 1d4, all that, and all of those individual die can now roll only 2 and above. Additionally, we also have Savage Attacker, which I didn't mention so far, because it's been in the first 5 levels that we started with. And obviously all of this is going to be in the build guide as well, but I'm just mentioning it here. And Elemental Adept just adds to that and makes it so our damage average is way higher. Next up, we have the Bartender Thisobald, and he is just the perfect damage sponge on this one. We're not dealing any kind of physical damage, so his entire mechanic is entirely useless. And our fire damage just goes right through him, and it's just perfection. Just watch.
Wonder if the gods are watching me.
Expect anything. He's been cursed to the hells and back. Flaming brew. This battle's taken a heated turn. One down. Millions live.
Those who saw my community post saying I found a nuclear weapon, you might know what I meant by that now. I also show here how the damage is calculated for this one. Here you can see all the stuff we collected so far in action, and if you want you can pause here to read it all, but it essentially just repeats everything I've said so far about all the different buffs I've acquired. Next up, we finish off Karniss, who we took the Moon Lantern from earlier, that's why he's Shadow Cursed Undead. Also, this is one of these fights where I forget I need my reaction for Luck of the Far Realms. I've played this game way too much to forget that every time, but somehow how I do. Anyway, the damage is still high enough, and you can really see that you don't need that guaranteed crit every time. It's just for the, at this point, just cosmetically high number. You don't need that much damage to actually kill the enemy in one turn. Next we fight Malus Thorm, the Doctor, and he's the first enemy we encounter, major enemy I mean, that is resistant to fire. That is an issue because we need temporary resistance from wet to apply arsonist oil and then let the resistance go away to get the -1 for vulnerability. But if the resistance never goes away, all arsonist oil does is negate the resistance, but it would never apply vulnerability. Meaning any enemy that is resistant to fire, even though we have Elemental Adept, so we don't get reduced damage, but we also cannot get the higher damage from vulnerability. You will see, this guy has a massive health pool, but it's still incredibly easy to burst him down with just how much damage we're dealing. We're still a Paladin build after all, so that is not that big of an issue. I'm just saying this to explain why we are not using the wet/arsonist oil strategy here. The Doctor drops the Paralyzing Critical Amulet, which is very well known in the community for how easy it is to use. Any humanoid, you can just use Luck of the Far Realms for the initial crit, and then paralyze the enemy, no saving throw required, so you get guaranteed crits for the next 2 turns against that enemy. It only works against humanoids, but against those it works perfectly, and on this build we're gonna get a lot of use out of it in Act 3 as well, because there are plenty of strong humanoids there that can just easily be cheesed using this amulet. Next up is one of my personal favorite fights in Act 2, and by now this is all just standard procedure, you've seen it happen, and it's just for another one of these huge hits that I want to show to you.
Seems like the best way.
By now we're almost done with Act 2, all that's left to do is kill Nightsong and then Myrkul. If I missed any fights that are maybe your favorite fight, let me know down in the comments. I don't mind including other fights, and I try to mix it up every time. So if you have any favorite fights, let me know, I will show them in future builds. But yeah, we're getting closer and closer to that final clip that I teased you with in the beginning, and most of you probably skipped this entire part and just went straight to the Myrkul fight because of how I handle timestamps. But if you didn't, I'd like to thank you for sticking around, and enjoy this awesome Ketheric duel, because I always clear all the other enemies beforehand, so I always get the duel with Ketheric.
You desecrate my halls? Kill my faithful. What heresy twists inside you? You've come this far. You've stripped your enemy of his advantage. Why would you show mercy now? Haven't you figured it out? The prison. My lord beckons me. You have no... I am the chosen, and you are nothing. Follow. See.
And we do follow, and we also do see a Myrkul getting destroyed, but that's a thing for in a few minutes. First, in the colony we get level 10, and just to get that perfect Myrkul clip, I actually grinded a bunch of XP from Act 1 and 2, so I reached level 10. Usually I do Myrkul at level 9, because level 10 does unlock level 4 spell slots, meaning both higher Searing Smites and higher Divine Smites, so perfect all around. And to achieve the smite spam, we actually convert all of our available spell slots that we don't need, and we use the spell slot restoration amulets for even more sorcery points. So we get way more level 4 spell slots than we would usually have. We usually would only have one, but we really want those high damage numbers, so it's worth it. now that that's done, we can head down the elevator and finally face Myrkul, the ultimate damage sponge. Now it turns out that Thisobald not only died with all the buffs, but also had the audacity to keep all the buffs. She still has 8 applied to her. Now, if I wasn't trying to keep a sane image online, I would use a very rude word right now. But I won't. But I think your imagination can fill that in for you. And then, after killing both the Mind Flayer and Thisobald, who still died in one hit even though she had the 8 buff, we finally convert Ketheric into Myrkul. Now since Myrkul is immediately hostile obviously, we have to apply wet and then wait a few turns for that huge chunk of damage, because we want the arsonist oil applied. But that doesn't really matter, Myrkul's fight is designed to wait it out anyway. 90% of my runs take lots and lots of turns, so I'm very well acquainted with the Myrkul waiting game. This next turn we apply wet to him using the water bottle, making sure to hit that exact right spot where objects actually hit him, because if you go too high or too low, he actually won't be affected by it. Also, AoEs sometimes don't affect him, so it's important we hit him directly. And like I said, now it's just a waiting game for those 2 turns. I have enough healing and the healing amulet, so it's totally fine. And luckily for you, I can just cut there. Now that only 1 turn of wet is left, we use all of our shots to apply arsonist oil. Our hit chance is low, yes, but we have quite a few shots and nothing else to do on this turn, so it's totally fine. And then next turn he will finally be vulnerable. And look at that, with the power of editing you are once again spared a turn of boring Myrkul stuff, and now the moment you and we've all been waiting for, the huge hit on Myrkul. Now I have to preface this, I actually forgot to bring Arrows of Darkness, so I can't use Shadow Cloaked Ring here, so we lose a bit of damage. But you already saw in the intro, that doesn't really end up mattering at all. And look at that,
Impossible.
the guy is dead, oh wonder.
Death.
If only there was an intro clip spoiling all of this.
I am its master.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one.
My
It
lord.
was a bunch of fun to record, and it took me a while to plan this build, so again, if you enjoyed the content, I would greatly appreciate if you liked or subscribed, or just commented. I really like it, enjoy reading all the comments, it's a lot of fun. But yeah. I'm looking forward to uploading Act 3. Obviously there's a bunch of stuff in Act 3 that's gonna elevate the damage even further. So I'm really looking forward to uploading that. And see you around.